Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome, everybody. It is the 8th episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. I'm Jason Jarvi. Vinny Stubbs is not here today. He is literally making the world a greener place. But sitting in today with me, as always, we have John running the board. But I brought in my brother, Joel Jarvi. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great, Jason. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to go ahead and talk about my balls as much as possible.
Scrub season's over, so your balls are safe.
Then that's great. It'll be like Vinny is... He hasn't even left us.
That's right.
I want to talk a little bit about driving first. I think there are some people out there who they shouldn't be allowed to drive. They can only do one thing at a time. But I'd like to think of myself as a pretty decent driver. I can multitask. So on my way here, I worked at the station this morning, and then I was on here to get to the podcast. And I knew I needed to go to 75 because I take 75 all the way to get here. And I was texting.
Why? Oh, that's illegal.
I know, it is illegal, but I'm pretty good at it. So I'm texting, and as soon as I finish texting...
Isn't that like being the best drunk driver in the group?
Yeah, but it only matters if you get caught.
I really hope that there are no police enforcement listening right now.
Yeah, that's okay. But anyways, I finished texting, and I realized that I'm on 696, and I'm on my way to my other job, which I'm not supposed to go to today. So I think it's crazy how you basically just... You're driving along, and then all of a sudden, something takes over, and I'm going a different way.
It's science, man. That's the way the human brain works.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as multitasking.
Yeah, I know. I know men are usually, they can only do one thing at a time.
What's your favorite thing to do at one time?
I don't know. Breathing would probably be one.
It's good.
Yeah. Stay alive.
I like to rub my tummy, pat my head sometimes.
The big thing this week was the Tigers, they started the season. And they definitely started it in a pretty amazing fashion. They swept the Twinkies. They outscored them 22-1. And the only reason that they scored was because Cespedes misplayed a ball in the outfield. And even though they beat Cleveland 8-4 yesterday, they had a ton of hits that game. They're going to have to start. They're starting to play real teams now. And it's obviously good to see them play good. But what is this team actually? Are they, they're not going to go 162-0.
What?
Right?
No?
That's crazy, right?
Are you sure?
Who are they? I mean, are we going to have offense every day? Are we going to have timely pitching from our starters? Price, Sanchez, Green, the big pasta, Alfredo Simon, they've all looked pretty good so far. And we've actually gotten decent looks from our bullpen when we needed them. Where do you think we're going to be down the road?
I don't know. Baseball's such a long season. It's hard 2 series in to say, well, they're definitely a playoff contender. I have a buddy of mine, and he likes to say his favorite saying is, you can't make the playoffs in April, but you sure can miss the playoffs in April. I think they're setting themselves up to make a good run. I think that you have a weak division again, which is very helpful. And anything we can get out of Verlander seems like it's going to be gravy at this point. I mean, you're hoping that he comes back. He threw 30 pitches the other day from the mound.
Right.
Looked good, felt good. I think he's key. He really is key. And I'm with you. I know you're a Verlander fan. You're on that bandwagon.
I am a Verlander slappy, and I need to stay on that train or else I'm going to lose all my credibility.
Well, not only that, I think it's not about necessarily you being a slappy. It's about you want the Tigers to do good, and the only way they're going to do good is with Verlander pitching well. So I don't think that's a bad thing to cheer for.
Right. And I am a little bit worried about Verlander because they've moved back. He was originally he's going to be ready by the start of the season. And then his first start was going to be April 12th. And then now it's moved back to April 18th against the White Sox. And I'm hearing that they're taking it day by day. I heard some stuff that he felt soreness after his throwing off the mound. And he's not going to start a game until he completes a simulated a complete simulated game. So it is starting to give me concerns because we're going to need him to give us something if we're going to have any hope of getting a 5th Central title.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there's a manager of a professional sports team that's not being 100% forthcoming with a star's injury.
Right.
I've never heard of that before. That's crazy talk.
You know, he's 32. He's lost a little bit of his fastball. I think it's a little overblown. He's still going to be able to touch 94, 95. We may not see him go into the 8th, 9th inning throwing 98, 99 miles per hour. I wasn't worried about Verlander before. This is just giving me a little bit more worry, though.
Yeah, I mean, so we can agree that the things that pitchers do are completely unnatural for your body to do. It's just they're ticking time bombs. Their arms are going to explode sooner or later, and you just got to hope that Verlander right now isn't at the end of that fuse. You gotta hope that he's got some left in him, and I think he's shown that he does. I mean, he's not just the fastball thrower that he was.
Yeah, I think nobody works harder than him.
Yeah, for sure.
Another reason that we have been doing so good this early has been the bottom of the order. And everybody knew coming in that we have, Miggy, you got JD Martinez, you got Victor Martinez. We picked up Cespedes. Those guys were gonna crush the ball. But we've been getting timely hitting from Alex Avila, Jose Iglesias. I mean, Anthony Ghost, Rajai Davis, all those guys have produced in the first couple games. Is it realistic to expect them to hit above somewhere between 250, 275, or are we going to see some drop-off from some of those people?
Well, I don't think anybody foresaw, 2014 JD Martinez being JD Martinez. So I think what you got to identify is who's going to be 2015's JD Martinez of 2014. Is it Anthony Ghost? Maybe it is. You don't know. It's fun to watch. In baseball, it's nice because you do have so many games to let play out and let things season. So hopefully they can find that JD Martinez this year. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the lineup that we have right now is some of the best defensive baseball players that we've ever seen on the Tigers. We've always seen guys who are basically just, scarecrows out there in the infield. And we got Jose Iglesias now at shortstop. Anthony Ghost made that sick running catch on opening day that, you're just not sure. Austin Jackson, he may have misplayed that ball when he played. And Torrey Hunter just lists the bunch of guys who have had no range in the outfield. So I think the defense is really going to help us this year. It'll actually help when our offense isn't, hitting 18 hits a game, getting us between 5 and 10 runs.
Yeah, it's also helpful when we don't have an overweight first baseman belly flopping all over the infield, trying to snag balls and run bases. He's still doing that too, isn't he? He's still belly flopping all over.
He is. There was a video this week of his new workout where he was squatting one of his players.
That sounds frightening.
But another topic that came up this week when we were playing the Twins, Bert Blyleven, Hall of Fame pitcher and Twins color analyst.
I tweeted at that guy.
He had some disparaging remarks for Detroit, and I think he lost all credibility from everybody in Detroit, and I think he probably lost credibility a ton of places everywhere besides Minnesota.
How often does Bert Blyleven get out of the press box? That's what I want to know.
Exactly. And I mean, so his first tweet was, it is the best I've seen downtown Detroit, though. Thank you, low clouds. And followed up with, guess I ruffled some feathers with my last tweet about downtown Detroit. Guess all you that responded haven't seen how ugly your downtown is.
So Bert Blyleven, he's a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah, Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah, apparently being a Hall of Fame pitcher does not get you a verified Twitter account. Do you notice that?
I didn't.
Yeah, no little check mark next to it. So, I mean, can we even be sure that it was Bert Blyleven?
It might not be Bert Blyleven.
Does Bert Blyleven, he probably has a flip phone, right?
It's possible.
He's probably got a leather case for it. It's probably attached to his belt.
He's an old guy.
That's what I hear.
But I think Governor Rick Snyder, I think he had one of the best retweets.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah, he's like, I think Detroit's looking pretty good with the picture of the AL Central Championship banner.
I don't like his politics, but I love his smack talk.
Yeah, he's one tough nerd, and he's one tough guy on Bert Blyleven.
Yeah, eat it, Bert.
Blyleven made it just worse with his apology. I don't think it didn't mean anything. It was literally an apology just to the city of Detroit. It wasn't to, the people of Detroit. It was like he was just apologizing for what he said and that he got reamed out for what he said.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Bert, right? If you're going to talk shit about Detroit, go ahead and keep your tweets up there, buddy. Like, you're going to delete them. It's the most cowardly move I've ever seen. First of all, to talk shit on social media takes a certain level of cowardliness.
Definitely.
But then to go ahead and delete those tweets, it's the internet, Bert. Those things live forever. Detroit's not going to forget. No one's going to forget. And I would be surprised if the dude has a job.
You know,
The Twins suck too.
my inner Detroiter, it wants him to be fired. And I think Fox Sports North, whoever does the Twins coverage,
The Ocho.
yeah, they definitely heard that and they're like, you got to apologize. And they threw out their apologies saying, you know, he doesn't represent our views. And
He kind of does. He's your announcer. He kind of represents your views,
right.
guys.
And I'm not going to call for his job because you'd have to do something really awful for me to say, hey, you should lose your job. But I think he shouldn't expect anything when he comes to Detroit. He shouldn't expect, us to say, oh, hey, Bert Blyleven. He should expect when he comes here to get shit.
Absolutely. You look at it this way too. So he wants to talk shit about downtown. Apparently he really has no idea what's going on in Detroit, because if there's one part of Detroit that you really have a hard time talking bad about right now, it's downtown.
Right.
You want to talk about our vacant buildings. You want to talk about, our swaths of land that are unoccupied. You want to talk about our streetlights not being on. You want to talk about unemployment. We don't have legs to stand on. Let's be honest. Downtown right now, it's pretty rocking.
Right. Yeah. Dan Gilbert, Mike Ilitch, they're building it back up.
They're doing the best they can.
So to move away from Tigers right now, they're doing pretty awesome. We have 158 more games to go. So I'm sure they'll
162-0.
I'm sure
Get on the bandwagon now, Jason.
I'll go out on the limb right now. I'll say 162-0.
I'm going to go 161-1.
Ooh.
They could drop one. You never know.
We'll see what happens next week.
Nathan's going to come back sooner or later.
Ooh, yeah.
He'll blow a
What's
save.
that dead arm?
He'll blow a save.
So we'll move on to some Lions talk. We haven't had a whole lot to talk about the past couple weeks. We won't mention he who must not be named who left, but we have some other...
Reggie Bush?
Oh, yeah, him.
Yeah, okay. We won't.
We might have some other money issues coming up. Right now, they have about $4 million of cap space, and we have two guys who were pretty big for our team.
Possible? How is this possible that we only have $4 million of cap space?
Really? Calvin Johnson, Matt Stafford?
We were sold a bill of goods, though, with Sue when he left, that the reason we couldn't sign him is so that we could sign other players. How can they now come out and say we have $4 million? That's pathetic.
Well, then we went out and traded for Ihedigbo, who was going to eat up for a ton of that. And we really haven't signed a whole lot of other people besides Tyrone Walker.
Nope.
So we're looking at George Johnson right now, who we gave him a tender. He's a restricted free agent, but the Buccaneers offered him 3 years, $9 million. Because the offer is more than we tendered him, if we don't match that, we don't get anything for him. Which, in reality, George Johnson was a luxury guy last year. We had Ziggy Ansah, we had Jason Jones, and Johnson really came in and provided a spark. And I think he reminds me a lot of Willie Young, and he's in the same situation as Willie Young, where Willie Young wanted more money, and we're not going to give it to him. So I think we may be looking at George Johnson walking away.
George Johnson, nice player to have. Is he a player that I'm going to pay a bunch of money to? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think you're going to pay a bunch of money to defensive tackles at this point anyway. I think that, I don't want to say that they're just big fat guys, but they're big fat guys.
They are.
And we can find big fat guys. I think if we could find George Johnson, I didn't know who George Johnson was before last season. So I have to hope at this point that Mayhew is targeting our next George Johnson. I don't know who he is, but I'm not going to shed too many tears about him leaving. What are we excited about here? It's like we've got Terrell Austin. He's supposed to be this great coach. We lost Sue. We lost the heart of our defense. We lost the strength of our defense. But if we're going to keep Terrell Austin, he's the real deal. Doesn't he have to? You have to have a little bit of faith.
For sure. And I definitely think we actually have the guys in place. George Johnson was just a rotational player. He wasn't the starter. We still returned Ziggy Ansah and Jason Jones, both of our starting DNs. And then we have Darryl Tapp, Devin Taylor, Larry Webster, and then we signed that edge rusher, Philip Hunt, from the CFL. So I think with that combined with whoever we go out and get in the draft, I think we're still going to be looking pretty. He who must not be named is irreplaceable. I think Nada is really going to step up, and he's going to be a force, but I think we're fine.
Yeah, I think when you talk about he who must not be named leaving, you don't talk about some of the benefits. It's hard to see benefits when you see a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame caliber player leave, but you got to admit that just him being on the team, being on the defense, we already don't get calls. We're not going to get calls in a game because we're the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to it, you get that guy in the field who everybody is waiting for him to stomp somebody or eye gouge somebody or, something. They're just waiting for it to happen. I have to imagine that there will be a lift in perception to the Lions. And I don't know how you measure that. So that's what I think all the people that are jumping off bridges because he left, you can't measure that kind of thing until the season starts. Hopefully, I think it'll have a positive effect overall on the team.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens. I think he's going to be okay. I know Vinny, he's already talked about jumping out of his apartment window. But I think one of the bigger issues, though, would be James Ihedigbo, who he played awesome last year. He came in, he filled a role. Him and Glover Quinn, they combined as one of the top safety tandems in the league.
Same guy that got benched, though, against Green Bay, right? For half of football that we don't quite know why.
He did, but would you rather have James Ihedigbo out there or Issa Abdul-Quddus being your starting safety?
Look, hey, I don't want to hear you talk bad about Issa Abdul-Quddus, all right? Issa Abdul-Quddus, great name, great football name.
It is.
He was a George Johnson of our secondary. Nice player, and that doesn't happen to Lions fans a lot of times. We don't get those guys that you don't know where they came from, but all of a sudden they step in and they play. Like that's the way the Patriots and the Steelers and the teams that win championships, that's their bread and butter. So for one season to have guys step in, you got to have a somewhat of a positive outlook. But I mean, to answer your question, of course I want Ihedigbo. Of course I want that guy back there with Glover Quinn. I hope they can figure it out. But with the mess of $4 million, like, what is Lawan doing in his office all day long? This isn't a job that they just they go away from in the offseason, right? I mean, he has an office and he sits in it every day. I would like to check his internet browser history. Can we do that?
He's playing Farmville all day.
Yeah. When I got a Candy Crush invite from Tom Lawand, I deleted it.
Oh, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Fuck Candy Crush.
But Ihedigbo, he says that he's going to sit out voluntary practices. Who knows if it will span into minicamp? And I think it's really two sides. If you're Ihedigbo, yeah, you played like a top 15 safety, but you got paid like you're in the the bottom half of the league.
Happens in the NFL all the time.
And the thing that he has going against him is that he's old, and he's still gonna. It's not gonna change. He's gonna get older, and this is probably his last chance at a big payday. If you look at the other guys that are around where he played statistically, all those guys are coming off of their rookie deals, and they're going to command the money, and they're going to get the money because they still have at least 5 or 6 years. James Ihedigbo, I think he was almost on the path to being retired when he was in Baltimore. He still has a couple of good years, but we're not going to pay him that kind of money.
Well, how much money is he going to lose for sitting out voluntary workouts? I mean, it takes a special player. I think when it all comes down to Green, and if they're going to lose a significant amount of money, if he's going to miss some voluntary workouts, first of all, who would you rather have missing that? A rookie that hasn't played or a veteran who is going to come in ready to play?
Well, for sure, the veteran.
Right. You're going to Ihedigbo missing voluntary workouts. Again, not something that I'm going to jump off a bridge about. Would I love him to be there? Sure. But in the end, I don't know. I think it takes a guy who's made his money, who's maybe won some championships, maybe has a little bit more clout to legitimately threaten sitting out for any period of time that could actually hurt their team. And I don't foresee this guy doing that.
Okay. Well, I hope we see him there because he's definitely a presence in our locker room. Vinny and I, over the course of the podcast, we've definitely debated on who the Lions should be looking at in the first round of the NFL draft. And we're pretty much set that it needs to be offensive or defensive line. You either need to get somebody who's going to start and protect Stafford on the offensive line, or you get somebody who's going to come in and hopefully be a somewhat of a replacement for number 90. I mean, what do you think? Who do you think the Lions should try and go get?
So I've said this for the last couple of years, and you know this because we've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who they take in the first round. All I care about is that they play. Whoever comes in has to play. I don't care if they take a punter, a kicker, a lineman, a linebacker. I don't care. Come in and play and contribute. Because for the Lions, that's all we really need out of our drafts. which we don't have. It's not brain surgery to get a guy to come in and actually start. And, you know, if they were going to take Ebron, I hated that pick last year. I hated the Ebron pick.
Everybody did.
I was in a B-dubs, and the place was so excited, and then they picked Ebron, and the whole place died. It died. They thought it was a joke.
Yep.
A tight end, you can't do that. And I turned to my buddy I was there with, and I said, you know what? If this guy starts, I'm fine with it. It's a good pick.
Yep, that's exactly how I was. And he turned out to be a complete dud.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated just put an article out, and they say Eddie Goldman, defensive tackle, junior, Florida State. So I don't know. I think they're doing your thing. If I had my dream, I don't know. Does Trey Waynes fall that far?
No way. I think we're all Sparties here, so I think we'd all love that Trey Waynes. But in most mock drafts, I see him going anywhere between 10 and 13.
SI's got him going 10.
And I've seen him the Kuiper's latest draft. He has him going at 11, and he's going to the Vikings. So we'd get to see him every year. So that's great.
Ouch. Yeah, I'm good. If they take a quality defensive tackle, quality offensive lineman, I'm good with either of those picks. The slappy in me would love a running back, but
I've said that before. Is that if Gurley comes in and he is the next Marshawn Lynch or the next AP, then it's well worth it. He's the steal of the draft. But you can make that argument for if Eric Ebron is the next Jimmy Graham or Tony Gonzalez, then he's the steal of the draft. And that's just not something that the Lions can do. They can't do, could they be? They need to do, they will be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I miss, everybody misses, but I love Joey Bell. Love the guy. He's a hard worker, and I love him as our number 2 change of pace guy. Man, I wish we had a number 1 running back. And, if Todd Gurley's it, that would be awesome. I really kind of like Melvin Gordon a lot, running in Wisconsin. Love that guy. He'd look good in a 20-digit Lions uniform.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lions take a running back somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round. I know that they've already brought in Tevin Coleman from Indiana, who I think you have the power in Joique Bell, and we need to get somebody with speed. I know Theo Riddick, he could be that aspect, but I think they're definitely going to bring somebody else in to challenge that and to give us more options.
Yeah, and let's be honest, as much as we don't want to see them take a wide receiver gets really thin after Calvin and Golden.
Exactly.
Real thin.
Yeah, and I know I've mentioned Nelson Aguilar. I think that's a guy we can look at later in the draft. I think he won't fall too far. We may have to look at coming back in the 2nd round or early in the 3rd round to look at that guy. Will
Nelson Aguilar start for us?
I think so.
I love it then.
I said it on a podcast before. I think he's the Odell Beckham of this year. And I mean, if he does turn into that'd be awesome. But we'll see. I think we still got a ways to go for the Lions, but we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk some Red Wings on the Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Doc here, telling you all about DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub for our podcast. It's where you go to download all the great podcasts that we bring to you each and every week. The Motor City Sports Rant every Monday, Doc and Jock every Thursday. From time to time, we preview clips also throughout the week. DetroitSportsPodcast.com, the free and easy way to support our project. You go there, click through the banner links, bookmark Amazon, and it's a great way if you want to save money on sporting goods, on electronics. Check out our website. The website is easy to use, easy to navigate, and it's a great way to help us continue to provide great sports content. 2 podcasts a week, maybe more. We might be adding more shows. Help us continue to provide great content here at the podcast. I'm enjoying listening to Joel and Jason bring the noise, talking about all things Detroit sports. Help us keep doing that by visiting our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
It's time for you to all to wake up, Red Wing fans, because it's playoff time, and the Red Wings, for the 24th year in a row, have made it in. Woo!
April in the D, baby.
April in the D. Vinny was proven wrong.
Whoa, wait. He bet against the Red Wings making the playoffs.
He made the bold prediction a few weeks ago that the Wings weren't even going to make it into the playoffs.
Oh my God!
Exactly. He's here. It's
That's
crazy.
insane.
But
Don't bet against them.
they backed into the playoffs. It was definitely rough down the road. They still have one more game against Carolina. That one game, you want them to at least, you want them to obviously win it, but you want them to win it in a good fashion. Carolina is not a good team.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see the real Red Wings this game anyway, though. You're gonna see a lot of the young guys. I mean, not that we haven't seen the young guys all season, but I don't know that you can really put too much stock in this last game. I don't know who's starting in goal. Do you know? Have they even
Who
said
knows?
Peter Mrazek. I checked the Instagram for the Detroit Red Wings. Peter Mrazek starting versus Carolina.
Okay, see, I'm a big Peter Mrazek guy,
Mm-hmm.
but he has not been impressive in the last few starts.
Right now, they're slated to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. That could change. It probably won't, but you're looking at Tampa Bay or Montreal probably in the playoffs.
The Tampa Bay Stevie Wise,
Exactly.
They're playing.
Yeah, I hate Stevie Y. I hate him there. I want him to be with Detroit.
The Tampa Bay Isermans.
Don't you open your mouth about the best, or I'm gonna shut it for you real quick.
They're slated to go up against the Lightning. What are your main concerns? They're 1-3. They did win their last matchup against them 4-0. They have two pretty solid centers. They have Steven Stamkos, he's a scoring machine, and they got another young guy in Tyler Johnson, who both of those guys are really they're stat junkies this year. They're getting a ton of goals, getting a ton of assists. I'm kind of conflicted. I'd say I'd want the Lightning over the Canadians because I don't want to face Carey Price, but
it's so much fun breaking Canadians' hearts.
it is cool. And on top of that,
We stole your sport, Canada.
on top of that, Max Pacioretty, their top goal scorer, he's battling some injuries, and Carey Price, he just hasn't done it yet. I mean, this year he's playing out of his mind, but he's a goalie who, when I don't think about him in the playoffs. I always think about him choking in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing about NHL hockey and hockey playoffs. There's two things that you're going to have to deal with in the playoffs. You're going to have to deal with refs calling the game different, which always affects the Red Wings every year. I don't know how you can still be surprised about that. Guess what? They're going to grab you, Datsuk. They're going to do that. That's going to happen. They're going to mug Zetterberg. It's going to happen, and they're not going to get calls. And it happens every damn year, and every year we pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, you're always going to run into hot teams, hot goalies that just all of a sudden just start playing out of their minds. It's the great thing about hockey. It's the horrible thing about hockey because it's so hard to predict like that. I don't know. Carey Price, he could turn it on. You never know. Ben Bishop could turn it on, and it changes an entire series.
I'm less worried about Ben Bishop. He's a guy that I think we can beat. I think we can get into his head. If we can, game one or game two, get quick goals and really get a good lead, that's a guy that I don't think he can recover. I think Carey Price is a guy who, one game you can beat him 7-1, and the next game he can shut you out. So I'd be more worried about him. So right now going up against Tampa Bay, I'm less worried because I think we have the guys to shut down their top guys. The one thing that we always see in the Red Wings playoffs is Datsuk and Zetterberg shutting down the other team's top guys.
Yeah, but then they're not scoring. Who's going to score? And maybe that's good this year. You got young guys leading the team in scoring. You got Nyquist and Tater.
I love Tater.
Love Tater. Love Thomas.
I know everybody was getting on me when I first came onto the Doc and Jock show when I suggested that we should trade Thomas Tatar. I was just throwing it out there. I was being the fantasy general manager, trying to give a little perspective, saying, "Hey, this is a guy. He's not going to get hotter than he is right now. We could get
Why?
I know, and he's been awesome. He hasn't dropped off. He's our top goal scorer. We need him right now."
Well, here's the thing: when you suggest trading star players, what you have to look at is why would the team that you're trading to make this trade? That's why when you listen to sports radio, everybody calls up and is like, yeah, maybe we can get Stamkos for Jonathan Erickson straight up. What do you think? Or, maybe we can trade. Maybe we can get Sidney Crosby for Dan Cleary. They need that grittiness on Pittsburgh. They don't need Sidney. That's just not how it works. You have to be willing to give up value. So I think the way I run my fantasy teams, the way I would run a professional team, which I know is completely different, but the way I would run it is there's nobody that should be hands off.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is not worth a phone call. You always make the phone call. If you've got Calvin Johnson, I love Calvin Johnson.
Butter.
But you know what? If I could get value for Calvin Johnson, I'd trade him.
For sure.
I would.
One of the bigger issues of whoever we're playing or whoever's going to be scoring, I think health is going to be the biggest issue. And trying to keep guys like Datsuk and Zetterberg healthy. I mean, when we've had them in the past couple of playoffs, they've been dinged up. They've missed a couple games. And I hate to admit it, we got to get Justin Abdelkader healthy. I hate Justin Abdelkader.
He skates so fast, though.
Him and Darren Helm.
They work so hard.
But
they kick their legs so hard.
We need those guys healthy, unfortunately.
They're breakaway machines, Jason.
Yeah, they're the guys from Mighty Ducks too, who he can get a breakaway but then can't stop when he gets to the goal.
They're shorthanded goal machines.
The thing with our lineup right now, when we actually have everybody healthy, we're scoring goals. When you take one guy out, when you take Datsuk out, it completely changes the game because Datsuk takes people away.
Such a fragile balance.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you think? I mean, is health going to play a factor in the playoffs?
I think health always plays a factor, especially in NHL playoffs. Remember, we talked about earlier about professional sports managers not being completely forthcoming with players' injuries.
Yes.
Yeah. That's see Mike Babcock. Yeah. See upper body injury.
Upper and lower body injuries.
Yeah. He's got a upper lower body injury.
Well, maybe since we have more of the young guys this year that they'll kind of carry our team and they'll be able to stay a little bit healthier. They'll be able to take a little bit of time off of Datsuk and Zetterberg's plates. And, we're going to have to figure something out with the defense.
Yeah. I mean, just wait for it. God forbid we get eliminated before, hoisting the cup. But, that press conference after we do get eliminated, you're going to find out that Datsuk's been playing without a femur all season. And you're like, what?
Yep. And you brought it up before. You like Peter Mrazek. And after one of the last games, they asked Mike Babcock about, who's your starting goalie. And his reply was, I'm going to go have a beer and I'll think about that.
Yes.
I mean, who is it? Who's it going to be game one? Jimmy Howard or Peter Mrazek?
Oh, boy, that's a good one. I've heard the argument that, you start Howard. You start Howard because he's got the background. He's got the history. And let's be honest. I mean, I want to say of the last 4 or 5 trips to the playoffs, there's Jimmy Howard's not the issue. I think we like to hang him out to dry a lot, but you probably go with Howard and then say, well, if Howard screws up, then you bring in Mrazek. I don't necessarily buy though that you couldn't do it the other way around. Start Mrazek, and then if he falters, bring in Howard.
Yeah, I also think that they're going to start Howard game one, and he'll at least finish that game unless he starts giving up goals like he did in this recent Montreal game where he's giving up softies left and right.
Someone tell him too that there's no shootouts anymore.
He should be happy. He had 30% save percentage in the shootouts. It's horrible.
I've never seen a player in a professional sport become more of a head case in a situation than Howard does in the shootout. You can see that he's not confident.
And he pumps himself up after every save.
He does. I remember we watched that, and every time he gets the save, he's yes, damn it.
Who on this team do you think is going to be the star of the playoffs? Is it going to be somebody on the offensive side, defensive side? Is one of the goalies going to step up, be the star? Who do you think needs to have that great postseason to give us a deep run?
Is it obvious if I go with Hank? No. I mean, I think Hank, we've been told and we've seen that Hank is a elite level player. There's a reason he's wearing the C, and I'm proud that he wears the C. I want to see Hank just raise his game and just take over games, man. Because there's times where you can see it, and then he gets mugged. I think if Hank plays the way Hank can, I don't know. I think if at the end of the playoffs we're saying he's our star, that's a good thing
for sure. The one guy who I think could be a real big difference maker in these playoffs is the guy that we picked up in the trade deadline, Marek Zidlicki. When I see him out on the ice right now, he just looks like he understands. He knows how to play. And not since we've had Lidstrom and Rafalski, we haven't had a guy back on the blue line who you actually feel comfortable having. Cronwall, a year or two ago, I think he's killing guys and he was just throwing his weight around. I've had no problem with Cronwall back there. But I think with his injuries, I think he's playing a little light. He's playing lighter. He's not, crushing guys as much. I think he's been called for a few penalties, but Zidlicki, he's been phenomenal on the ice. I think he gives us the right-handed shot that we haven't had in a while on the blue line in the power play. And I think, he works. And he's definitely the best trade deadline acquisition that we've had in a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's also not saying much. Holland's he hasn't had tremendous trade deadlines the last few years. Defense is just so thin with us, so thin. I don't know what you do past Kronwall, Zidlicki, DeKaiser, and then it's pretty much vomit after that.
Yeah, and Zidlicki and DeKaiser right now are your two best defensemen. Kronwall and Eriksson on a pair together, they've been horrible. In March, I think they were both close to -10 in the plus minus, and DeKaiser was really the only guy who was showing up. So we're going to have to see stuff out of DeKaiser and Zidlicki. And I mean, as much as we don't like him, Kyle Quincy on a line with Danny DeKaiser, he makes him better.
For sure. Oh, yeah. I don't think Kyle Quincy he's an okay stopgap. And when you pair him with a guy like DeKaiser, he becomes infinitely better. Yeah, I don't know, man. Defense is rough. I remember watching the Wings when they were, in their heyday, and the defense was just so sure-handed and so just dominant back there. And you really appreciate, now that Lidstrom is gone, just how smooth he was back there, and what a steadying force he was for the entire team.
Yeah, I think defense is definitely going to play a huge role in these playoffs. We're gonna have to be able to stop somebody. But we're gonna take another break real quick, and then we're gonna come back. We're going to talk a little bit of fantasy football. It's never too early to talk fantasy football. And we'll have our next edition of Length or Girth on the Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Speaking of fantasy football, if you have talent out there in fantasy games, check out one-day fantasy contests at our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can draft a new team in baseball, or if you're a fan of hockey, basketball, you can draft a new team in one-day fantasy contests every single day. In baseball, for example, if you thought that Anibal Sanchez was going to pitch well against the Twins, boom, draft him, pick him up, and try your luck. For as low as $2, you can try to win thousands of dollars each and every day. Why not? Instead of waiting and playing season-long games, you can play great fantasy games each and every day in the sport that you like, and try your chance at winning. A few of our followers have put up the $2, signed up over at DetroitSportsPodcast.com, played in the most popular fantasy contest at DraftKings, and they took down thousands of dollars. Why not you? Check it out. One-day fantasy contests. It's the wave of the future. They're giving out tons and tons of money. Why not take it down? Check it out. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can try your luck and win thousands of dollars.
I know you came here to see. If you a freak, then you come on with me. And I know what you came here to do. Now bust it open, let me see you get loose. It's going down for real. It's going down for real.
Let's talk some fantasy football, everybody.
I love fantasy football, Jason.
You know, me and Joel, we've been in a league for how many years now?
Oh my gosh.
I think it's close to 15.
Yeah, our first season was 1999.
So yeah, we're about 13 or 14 years.
Yeah, Jason was.
Hey, that's unbelievable.
It is. Jason was 3 when we started.
And collectively, we have 2 championships.
Well, yeah.
Both for Joel.
Yeah, that's in that league.
So I have the worst luck in fantasy football.
This is true. I've never seen worse. It's insane.
And I go through a process every year. During draft, I'm always in love with my team. I draft, oh man, that guy's going to be so good. And then when the season starts, I try to wait on my guys to start producing because, they're always going to start slow. So, I draft from first, second round, I got to stick with them. And then by the time that I start making moves and, I start getting, quality guys back, it's too late and I can't get back into the playoffs. And I always finish 5-9 and it's awesome. And I hate fantasy football at the end of the year. Joel usually tries to talk me off the ledge, but just like the Lions, I always come back every year.
It's uncanny. It is uncanny, your string of bad luck in first round draft picks.
This is bad.
Yeah, it's really rough.
Yep.
I mean, I've always said, in order to have fantasy success, you need to hit on that number 1, number 2 guy. And I've never seen a guy get worse luck in those 2 rounds.
Yep. Horrible. But What would you say is the best part of our league?
The best part of our league is, I don't know.
Well, what's Christmas?
Well, of course it's draft, doy.
Draft is always the best part of the league. And for all you people out there who play fantasy football, if you have a chance, do a live draft. I know there's going to be people out there who, they sit and they do online drafts and, I have 2 minutes per pick and I just want to stay at home and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you're doing online drafts, you're doing it wrong.
It's an experience. It's about getting together with your group of friends. You sit around. We love it. We make an entire day out of it. We get out there 10 a.m. We usually have some snacks beforehand, and then we vote on some rule changes, and then we start the draft. We got the whole draft board, and it's being together with everybody. We have one guy who has the clock, and you always hear the beep, 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 beep. The pick is almost up, and then one year we had one of our guys tackled another buddy trying to get their first round pick, and it's awesome. And after draft, we do it on Labor Day weekend, so it always starts with the beginning of college football. So we get to watch that. I remember I loved being with all of my Michigan friends and watching Alabama just pound them in the butt,
just house them.
It was awesome. I almost felt bad for them by the end of it.
Yeah, you felt quite a bit of glee that day.
I hate Michigan so much.
You really do. It's not healthy.
It is healthy. I can't stand the people who are, I'm a Michigan fan, but I root for Michigan State any other time except when they're playing Michigan. That's lies. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're one
you
or the
root
other.
for Michigan State or you root for Michigan. And I get it. And people are like, can you really be happy that Michigan State lost because Michigan lost too? Yes, I can be happy that Michigan lost too.
Again, I don't know that that's healthy, but
whatever.
You can do it.
I can because it's America. But let's dive into a little bit of fantasy football talk. Every year, there's somebody that comes out of the woodworks and they just blow up in fantasy football. They're awesome. I think last year you'd look at Justin Forsett on the Ravens.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere. I know he was one of my saving graces on my team where I got him as a secondary piece in a trade, and I ended up starting him for the rest of the year. I mean, even for the Mish fans out there, Denard Robinson actually had a solid year on Jacksonville.
Yeah, if you're telling me that you foresaw Justin Forsett, you're lying also.
So who is we're going to look at the breakout quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers this year. Joel, who do you think who's your breakout quarterback?
So my breakout quarterback, he was the 22nd rated quarterback in our league last year. That's Mr. Teddy Bridgewater from the Minnesota Vikings.
You had him for a time.
I did have him for a time. I don't think he started for me, but he only played 13 games last season. He had 259 completions. That's for a 64.4% completion percentage, about 3,000 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for a QB rating of 85.2. Now let me read you a couple numbers, Jason, and you tell me what you think about him.
Numbers can tell many stories.
They can. 76.5, 71.2, 87.7. Do you know what those numbers are?
Those completion rates?
Those are other quarterback rating numbers for quarterbacks in their first year. 76.5, that's Mr. Andrew Luck. He threw for about 1,000 more yards in his rookie season, about 9 more touchdowns, about 6 more interceptions, and played in about 3 more games. 71.2, that's our good friend, Mr. Peyton Manning. He threw for only 800 more yards than Teddy, 12 more touchdowns, but 16 more interceptions in a full season. And the 87.7, so it's higher, that's Matt Ryan from Atlanta. He only threw for about 500 more yards, 2 more touchdowns, and 1 less interception in a full season. I think Teddy Bridgewater, you play him all season long, and I think you have a quality quarterback there. He's going to have another year under his belt. He's not going to be a rookie. Chicago is a mess this season. They get them two times a year. And if you look at the rest of the team that's surrounding Teddy, I mean, let's assume now that AP comes back.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he could be a top 10 quarterback. You've got Charles Johnson, Jarius Wright, Cordarrelle Patterson, Mike Wallace now. I know how you feel about Mike Wallace. He's a Viking now. Kyle Rudolph, that's a sneaky good receiving core. And they could do some damage this season. And don't forget, too, that Sean Hill is now the backup in Minnesota. We know what he does to quarterbacks.
I definitely think that relies a lot on Adrian Peterson coming back, because if you don't have Adrian Peterson in the backfield, you're going to have people daring the Vikings to run on them. So I definitely think that's a good pick. I'm gonna disagree. I have another guy. He was a rookie last year. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a bad year, but he had 21 touchdowns, 12 interceptions with nobody at wide receiver. Would you say that's a pretty good year?
I'd say so. I'd take that.
That was Mr. Derek Carr from the Oakland Raiders.
Ooh.
And I think he's going to be a stud. He had nobody at wide receiver. He had Andre Holmes, James Jones, Michael Kendricks, Kenbrell Tompkins.
Was Denarius Moore, was he healthy?
No, Denarius Moore was not healthy. He only had like 12 receptions.
He's garbage.
So,
anyway.
And more than likely, they're going to be drafting a wide receiver at number 4 in the draft, and they're looking at Amari Cooper from Alabama or Kevin White from West Virginia. Whoever they take from those guys, it's only going to add for him. And on top of that, you have a full season with Latavius Murray, who he's a good back. Yep. And then they went out and they picked up a pass-catching threat in Roy Halou. I think he's going to sneak into the top 10 this year. I think you may draft this guy as your number 2 quarterback, and you may have like Derek Carr and then Cam Newton as your starter. You're going to be guessing every week who to start.
Yeah, I hate that situation. I hate when you got 2 quality players. You have to, I think depth in fantasy football, when you're talking about that, it's one of the most overrated things you can find. If you've got depth, you need to turn that into starters.
Yeah, and so let's move on to running backs. My breakout running back this year, I think he's been on people's radars every year, but he's always had some sort of injury or he's been behind people. I think it's Shane Vereen on the Giants now. He's been buried on New England's roster. They always have 4 or 5 running backs.
That's so frustrating.
Who they circle through. And Belichick, he just gets in his head, if you fumble once, you're on the bench. Mm-hmm. And Vereen's definitely had his injuries, but I think he's in a really good situation in New York. Rashad Jennings is in front of him, but Rashad Jennings almost always has a hamstring injury. I think he constantly lives with a hamstring injury. So I think Vereen he's going to be a huge receiving threat. He's going to be the third down back. And when you have a guy like Odell Beckham going out there and Eli Manning, he's going to get the ball to him. Yeah. And he's going to be a safety net, because when teams are obviously going to double team Odell Beckham Jr. now, he's going to look for that dump off, and I think Vereen's going to be that guy. So I think you can almost count on Vereen having 700 to 800 receiving yards, and then with the time that he eats up from Rashad Jennings, you'll see 400 to 500 rushing yards and 12 total touchdowns.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue against that. I mean, you got Tom Coughlin, who loves the run, so they're going to feed him the ball.
So who do you got?
I went with again, outside the top 10 running back. He finished 15th in our league this season. He only played in 13 games also, and I'm talking about Mr. Mark Ingram from the New Orleans Saints.
I hate that guy.
I hate him too, but you know what? If there's ever going to be a season, this is going to be the season. It's got to be this season. He had 226 attempts last season, which was the most in his career. He had 964 yards, again, most in his career, and 9 touchdowns. Pretty sure that's most in his career. So the fact of the matter is New Orleans, I see them taking a step back this season. No Jimmy Graham, but they retooled their offensive line. Max Unger is a good center. I don't know. Do you know the running back that ran behind Max Unger last time? Have you heard of that guy?
I don't know. I know he ate Skittles.
Yeah, beast mode. He ran behind Max Unger. You know how I feel about beast mode.
I know,
Jason.
you love him.
Oh, I love Marshawn. Don't talk to the media, Marshawn. I don't care. You don't ever have to talk to the media. Just keep doing what you do out there. So he's going to have Max Unger. There's no more Pierre Thomas. And you know what? I am not buying CJ Spiller as a true number 1. CJ Spiller couldn't beat out Fred Jackson in Buffalo. Ingram is way better than Fred Jackson. If there's ever going to be a season for this guy to finally take a next step, which I think we saw him taking that step last season a little bit, if it wasn't for some injuries and wasn't for some roulette at backup, I think he takes a step this season. And I think he could easily step into the top 10 and keep New Orleans competitive this season.
Yeah, I definitely think New Orleans they're gonna need him, because they are depleted at wide receiver. So let's look at some wide receivers now. Who do you got as a breakout wide receiver this year?
So again, I feel bad about this one because I didn't really go outside the box too far. Again, we wanted to stay away from the top 10 at a position. I went with number 11 from last season, so I feel like that could be a cop-out, but I don't feel like this guy's on everybody's radar. It's Jarvis Landry from Miami. He had 84 receptions last season on 111 targets for 758 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think Miami this season, they went out, they got Jordan Cameron, and Deion Sims is coming back as tight ends. I think that's good. I think they have a good offensive line. Marquise Pouncey. Oh, they added Kenny Stills from New Orleans. You lose Mike Wallace, you lose that cancer in the locker room. And you got Lamar Miller, in the backfield, who's a quality running back. I don't know if you knew this, Jason, but the Dolphins went out and they signed LaMichael James.
Oh,
I have a man crush on LaMichael James. I'm not going to lie.
I had a crush on James when he came out. I really wanted the Lions to draft him, but they didn't.
I really want him to be good. So maybe a change of scenery, get away from the 49ers will be good for LaMichael James. But Jarvis Landry, man, he was on my fantasy team last season, my championship winning fantasy team. And Jarvis Landry, I think you could see him as a quality number 2, maybe a number 1 wide receiver.
I see the similar production for Jarvis Landry this year. I don't really see a breakout because I see Kenny Stills as he essentially takes up for what Mike Wallace did.
True.
But it's all relative.
Tannehill's not a bad quarterback.
He's not. And I actually when I was looking at the breakout quarterbacks, Tannehill was the first guy that I looked at. But I thought Derek Carr had a little bit more upside. But my breakout wide receiver this year would be Jordan Matthews at Philadelphia. And he had a pretty decent season there last year as a rookie. And I mean, he's the number 1 now, right? They let go of Macklin.
Yeah, everybody else is gone, actually.
Everybody's gone. So
they're going to run a lot of 1 wide receiver sets.
His main competition right now is Riley Cooper and Miles Austin.
Ouch.
So
Miles Austin.
On top of all that, with the signing of DeMarco Murray and an unproven Sam Bradford, teams are just they're gonna dare the Eagles to throw. They're gonna line up 8 in the box and they're gonna say, "Hey, run DeMarco Murray at us," or have Sam Bradford with no ACL try and throw the ball. And I think Sam Bradford will surprise some people. I think before he got his last injury, he was starting to really come into his own in St. Louis. And Jordan Matthews, he was pretty sick last year. He was a huge red zone threat, and he had 8 touchdowns still while Jeremy Macklin was there. So I think he's going to take some of what Jeremy Macklin had, and I think you're going to look at him easily eclipsing 1,100 yards and over 10 touchdowns.
Yeah. Is he a number 1? Is he your number 1 wide receiver?
I think I wouldn't draft him as, if you're in your fantasy draft, I don't draft Jordan Matthews as my number 1 wide receiver. You're still looking at guys, Calvin, Julio Jones, AJ Green, even though he sucked ass for me last year.
When did you take him? First or second round?
Probably like 2nd or 3rd round.
Had to.
Exactly, because he's AJ Green. But Jordan Matthews is going to be the guy that you take. You probably take him as your number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, and he's gonna be that breakout guy. Last year, I had that with Antonio Brown. I took him as my 2nd or 3rd wide receiver, and he turned into a monster. I mean, he blew up last year. So I think Jordan Matthews could do that this year, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you gotta figure Sam Bradford in college was a system quarterback. Can't stay upright in St. Louis. Can't stay healthy. But if there's ever been a marriage between a system quarterback and a system coach, it's got to be Chip Kelly and the Eagles, right?
Yeah. The only thing that I would say about Jordan Matthews is that if I do draft him, you can throw that out the window because he'll probably break his leg.
Yeah, let the listeners know if you do draft him.
Yeah,
Jason.
I will. So conversely, with the breakout players, what top 10 guy from last year are you staying away from this year? Because, I mean, with all the free agency changes, who are the players that you're not touching with a 10-foot pole? What quarterback are you not going to look at?
So, again, I feel like this is a little bit of a cop-out because I really wanted to make it. I really wanted to go outside the box. And I wanted to come on here and I wanted to say, I am not going to touch Andrew Luck or Aaron Rodgers with a 10-foot pole. But I looked at the numbers and I was like, no, they're going to be
ridiculous.
Great. Yeah, they're going to be awesome next year. So my quarterback to stay away from is Peyton Manning. I think you saw him completely fall off last season.
Yeah, noodle for an arm.
Yeah, I'm really surprised he came back this year. No more Julius Thomas. I don't buy into their running backs. I don't buy CJ Anderson. I don't buy Ronnie Hillman. Demaryius Thomas is solid. He's a superstar. But I don't know that. I think time is just kind of caught up with the guy. And don't get me wrong, I love Peyton Manning. He's probably my favorite quarterback of all time. I love his command out there. I love his knowledge of the game. And I love his red ass when he's out there and how he just wants to. There's not a player out there that wants to win more than Peyton Manning. And I think it's coming to bite him in the ass a little bit this year because he probably should have walked away.
Yeah, I definitely think we say this every year though, that Peyton Manning, he's getting old and that he's just going to fall off, and then he always defies logic.
He does.
And I think the guy that I'm going to bring up is a similar type guy. I don't think we've really heard that he's dropping off yet, but I think this is the year that we start talking about that, and that would be Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's getting older. He's definitely lost some of his arm strength, and he's always been a little guy. And on top of that, he lost 3 of his top 5 receiving threats from last year. You got Jimmy Graham, he got traded to Seattle, Kenny Stills in Miami now, and they just let go Pierre Thomas. And you bring in C.J. Spiller, he hasn't done anything. He had one good year, and then he drove up his stock for fantasy and burned everybody. Right now, you're looking at Marcus Colston, who, I mean, the guy he's consistent, but he's a guy, he's not a number one, he's the number 1 wide receiver in New Orleans, but he's a number 2 or 3 in fantasy.
Yeah, he's consistently, you never know what you're going to get out of him.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's consistent about him.
And the other wide receiver that they have, Brandon Cooks, he's coming off an injury. And he looked good in the games that he played, but you don't have anybody else. He probably looked good because he also had Kenny Stills next to him and Jimmy Graham going over the middle.
Jason, you're forgetting about number 88 for the New Orleans Saints, Mr. Nick Toon.
Ooh.
If you're forgetting about him.
Yeah. How many receptions did he have this year?
I don't know. Was that a Matt Millen draft pick?
Possibly. But, you know, Drew Brees, he's danced around 5,000 yards for 4 years now. And I think this is the season that you see him come back to earth. I don't see him getting more than 4,400 yards this year. I think 4,400 yards and 20 to 25 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to rely on Mark Ingram, and you know that's gonna be that.
Yeah, I'd be happy if Breeze proved us wrong. But all the reasons why I love Mark Ingram are the same reasons why I'm not feeling like Breeze is going to have the kind of 5,000 yard season that we're all becoming used to.
Yeah, and similar on your Peyton Manning pick, the running back that I'm staying away from is C.J. Anderson. Mm-hmm. He came on really late in the year, and we're hearing the same thing this year that we heard about Monty Ball the year before, that this guy is going to be one of the best backs in the league. He's going to have great production for you, but he's still a Denver running back. And regardless of who's coaching that team, they're always just circling in running backs. I think Ronnie Hillman has been there for at least 20 years. He's always been the backup who's in the wings, and he's going to be great. But so you have C.J. Anderson. You still have Monty Ball there. I think he was injured, and that's really one of the only reasons that C.J. Anderson got a shot. I think the main thing that's going to kill C.J. Anderson is running back by committee. It's going to be a healthy dose of C.J. Anderson and Monty Ball and Ronnie Hillman, and really whoever is more comfortable with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and if Manning's not going to beat you by the air, then they can definitely stack that box and stop the running game.
Yeah, and you know I think he'll probably end up being a pretty good running back number 2. But if you have to go out and draft him as your number 1 running back, I think you're going to be looking at some major issues.
Yeah, my running back from the top 10 from 2014 that you're going to want to avoid in 2015 is Matt Forte from the Chicago Bears. Love the guy. He's been studly and really like what he's done in his career. I think Chicago, like I said earlier, I think Chicago's going to be a mess this season. I have zero faith in Jay Cutler as a quarterback or as a human being. Their wide receivers are a mess too. Alshon Jeffrey's decent, but past that, it gets pretty rough. Bears go out, get Jaquiz Rodgers. I think that's going to take away some touches. I like Kadeem Carey. He was a rookie last season for Chicago.
I know you got some ties to Arizona with NCAA football.
Oh, yeah. I love Arizona football on NCAA. What was that, 15, 14?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't make that anymore. Stupid EA Sports. But I love me some Kadeem Carey. I think you saw him a little bit. He showed some flashes last season. I think that's going to hurt Forte's value this year. And he's just getting older. You know, he's going to be 29 this year, you know, right at that drop off that you see running backs just kind of fall off. I don't know. I know that hurts all our Bears fans and all that, but
F the Bears.
Yeah, F the Bears.
Let's look at the last one. Wide receiver. Who are you staying away from this year?
So wide receiver, going to stay in the same division as the Bears, and I'm going to go with Randall Cobb from the Green Bay Packers.
Just signed a big deal.
Yeah, no, I think that's a kiss of death. I mean, he's a young guy, only his 5th season. Aaron Rodgers is clearly a stud, but what Aaron Rodgers has shown is that he's not going to, again, he's just like Tom Brady. He's not going to zero in on any wide receiver unless your name is Jordy Nelson.
Yes.
And then he's going to throw you the ball every goddamn time. I don't think Randall Cobb can stay healthy. 5'10", 192. That's small. Playing in a big division, outdoors. Nah, I just can't see him keeping it up. And I've never really bought into him, and that's bit me in the ass.
Yes.
But you know what? When it's all said and done, he was a what? He was a 1st or 2nd rounder last year, and he did exactly what we thought he was going to do: get hurt and miss a bunch of games.
But he still produced though. When he was playing, he still produces. And I mean, that's the only thing is that, I mean, on some of these guys, you know, who I'm bringing up, well, he doesn't have a quarterback. Randall Cobb, he still has Aaron Rodgers, who's arguably the best quarterback right now.
It's hard. I went out on a limb.
That's good. The guy that I would have to stay away from, it really is a no-brainer, and it's Jeremy Maclin in Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
He had arguably his best year last year in Philadelphia, and he could have made his money anywhere. He could have stayed in Philadelphia. He could have gone anywhere else, but he decides to go to the one place where a wide receiver did not catch a single touchdown last year.
Is there a team out there that can win football games with nothing at quarterback like the Kansas City Chiefs can?
I mean, the only reason that they're any good is Jamal Charles, because Jamal Charles is sick, and that they run the entire offense through him. They're not going to run the offense through Jeremy Maclin.
No, you could start at quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs.
You know, anyone. I think anyone here right now could just throw a dump off pass to Jamal Charles and we'd be good. Andy Reid drafted this guy, and I mean, does he really think anything's changed from when he got drafted? Why go there? Why not? You should just, I get it. You want to make money, and Kansas City might have thrown you the most money that was out there. You should have stayed in Philadelphia. I know Vinny would have loved that because he's a Philly fan. But you got Alex Smith throwing you the ball. That's bad. Play the drop. That's bad.
This is bad.
Yeah, this is bad. The offense goes to Jamal Charles. I wouldn't count on Jeremy Maclin as anything higher than a wide receiver 3 because he's got a noodle throwing the ball to them.
Don't discount though. One of the major factors is being comfortable with your head coach.
Oh yeah, it's death for fantasy football players. Yep. Undoubtedly, somebody's going to take him as their number 1 wide receiver, and may God have mercy on your soul. So let's look. We got one more fantasy football topic right here. The draft is coming up, and it always throws fresh meat into fantasy football. If you could take any rookie coming out in the draft this year, but you had to start them all year, who would you take?
Who would I take? All right, so here we go. I'll tell you who I'm not going to take first.
Okay.
I'm not going to take a wide receiver. They're too hard to predict. They're too random. And first-year wide receivers don't do anything. Don't get me wrong. I fall in love with first-round wide receivers.
Except Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, no, I loved him. Not high enough to draft him, but I loved him. I loved Brandon Cooks this year. Really wanted Brandon Cooks. And he ended up to be pretty good. I'm not going to say, though, that I foresaw that. Just saying that I love rookie wide receivers. I'm also not going to pick a quarterback. Not going to pick Winston. Not going to pick Mariota. First-year quarterbacks are awful. And if you can name me one rookie quarterback who's had a quality rookie fantasy season, I just listed off Peyton Manning, Matt Ryan, and some other dude, and none of them had good rookie years.
Superman, Cam Newton.
Yeah, screw Cam Newton. Now, I think you could go with a tight end. I think a tight end is probably safe. But in fantasy football, and in my opinion, if you're drafting a tight end and it's not either Rob Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing it right. So all that being said, I think you can guess what position I'm going to take.
Running back.
I love running backs. I love stud running backs. I love running backs that you can plug in every week and you don't have to think twice. That was Marshawn Lynch for me last season. You plug him in, he does what he does. If he has a crap game, you can't kick yourself because what are you going to do? Not start Marshawn Lynch? No, you're going to start him. You're going to take what he gets. That being said, the rookie that I'm taking this year, probably higher than I should, is going to be Melvin Gordon from Wisconsin. He is 6'1". He is 207 pounds. He rushed for 2,500 yards last season, 29 touchdowns. He does not have an impressive 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.52. But let me list you off some numbers, Jason. I'm going to list you some numbers. Ready?
Oh, I love numbers.
Here comes more numbers, buddy. 4.53, 4.55, and 4.55. Those, sir, are the 340 times for Giovanni Bernard, Doug Martin, and Zach Stacy, all running backs that I think you would say you'd be good with as a number 2 running back for next year.
Sure.
Okay. If Melvin Gordon can come out, be a solid number 2 running back, you start him all season long, I think you do it. He's going to be a late pick. He's got Dallas eyeing him, Arizona eyeing him, Baltimore, Denver. Those are all teams that I think Melvin Gordon could succeed at very easily. Obviously, I love him at Dallas. With DeMarco Murray gone and with a line that looks like a line from, the 1990s running down there, there's no other place that a rookie running back could come out and succeed better than Dallas right now.
I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Even though I love Todd Gurley, I think he's a big question mark with his injury. Yeah. The guy that I'm going to go with, the rookie that I draft and that I have to start all year, would be Amari Cooper. And it's for the same reasons that I picked Derek Carr as the breakout quarterback this year. He's probably going to go to Oakland, and I think you pair Derek Carr with Amari Cooper, it's just going to spell trouble for opposing defenses. I think Amari Cooper is probably one of the most polished receivers coming out of the draft since Julio Jones. So you're getting a guy who you can plug in. He may not reach 1,000 yards. You're probably looking at 800 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. And even if he doesn't go to Oakland, I think he'll be able to produce wherever he goes. As long as he's not going to Kansas City, he's probably going to be fine.
Yeah, I would plug in Amari Cooper as my number 2, number 3 all season and not think twice about it.
Yeah, so that's it for some fantasy football talk.
I love it.
And I think it's time. I know this is your first time here at the Motor City Sports Rant, but it's the time for the 7th edition of A Length or Girth. Ooh. It kind of feels wrong doing this without Vinny, but I did get his permission. So without further ado, let's dive in. Joel, the first question on length or girth. This isn't your late 90s or early 2000 Red Wings. In some ways it's better. In some ways it's worse. Do you think the Wings go deep in the playoffs? Or are we looking at another one and done length or girth?
Jason, I'm going to say length. I think they're going to do it. I think whenever you have a coach like Babcock, whenever you have a star like Zetterberg, whenever you have a star like Datsuk, you have to go length. I think that you have the goalies, while they're unproven and they're shaky right now, have both shown that they can be quality goaltenders. I'm going to say length. I think they're going to go far. I want to see a Stanley Cup so bad.
My heart wants to say length, but I think from what I've seen in the past couple weeks, I'm going to predict girth. And I hate to say that, but our defense is a sieve right now. They're not stopping anybody. Unless the goalie position becomes more clear and either Jimmy Howard or Peter Mrazek steps up, I think we may see them go out. I think it won't be a sweep, but I think we may see them go out in the first round.
Ouch. I hope you're wrong.
Me too. Okay, it's time for the second question. Time for number 2. 4 games in, the Tigers' biggest issue, bullpen, that we've talked about over all the podcasts, they've looked pretty solid. We knew the question marks coming in, but are they going to continue being solid all year, or are they going to drop off? Length or girth, Joel?
I'm going to say girth. I think they have to drop off. I don't think that you can ride this kind of streak that they're doing right now. You have to look at the fact of opponents, and they've played garbage opponents so far this season. I'm going to go girth. I don't see them bullpen holding up.
I will go length because Joe Nathan is on the DL. We don't have to worry about him being a roller coaster ride as the closer. I think Soria, it may not even be Soria as the closer. I think Ian Kroll so far has really been impressive when he comes out. He's an awesome lefty. Hopefully he can keep it up. I think this team will be able to. It's not going to be as bad. I don't think it's going to be as bad as everyone thought it was going to be. It may not be at the level of where KC was with their bullpen last year. But I think they're going to be paired with our starting pitching. The bullpen is going to get us to another AL Central title.
I hope you're right.
Me too. Number 3, and the final question of length or girth. With another dismal Pistons season coming to a close, we saw some sparks of life. With another offseason under Stan Van Gundy, do the Pistons return to the playoffs next year, or will they continue to be bottom feeders, length or girth?
I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say girth. I think they get better next season. I think that they make the playoffs. I think it's not that hard to make the playoffs in the NBA. I think you watch teams, there's a lot of parity. You have a couple teams that are really, really good. Making the playoffs, I think, is doable. Winning a championship or doing anything meaningful, that's a whole other story when it comes to the NBA. I think the Pistons are on the right track. I like Reggie Jackson. I think KCP plays decent. I love Andre Drummond. And I think, you get Brandon Jennings. I would love them to figure out a way to keep Brandon Jennings and Reggie Jackson. The Brandon Jennings that we saw before he got hurt was a completely different player than we've seen his entire career. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that they return to the playoffs next year, but with the caveat that there's no way they win a championship anytime soon.
I think that's a pretty thick limb that you're going out on, because I'm going to go girth as well. I definitely see these guys getting better next year. We've really seen improvement. All the injuries, all the different changes that they've gone through this year. I think I trust Stan. I think he's going to go out. He's going to get some really good shooters. It's going to improve the core of the team. If we have a guy that Reggie Jackson can dish the ball to other than KCP, it's going to be lights out. I think we're going to, and like you said, the Eastern Conference, nobody's good. We just got eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah.
As a team who started off 5-23. I mean, if we were in the West, no chance that we make the playoffs next year. But I think Stan does just enough, and we get in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I think Dumars is going to target a lanky swingman in the draft this year.
Ooh, a pasty guy?
Yeah, pasty, lengthy swingman with a long reach.
Ooh. Well, that will do it for our 7th edition of Length or Girth.
It was fun.
It was fun, even without Vinny. So, how did you guys like it? Was it, there wasn't as much ball talking? I thought it went pretty good. I thought Joel did a really good job of filling in for Vinny.
Well, thank you, Jason. I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
I thoroughly enjoyed listening. It was a great podcast. I really took to heart what you guys said about the fantasy, and I can actually apply it. But to speak about, I was breaking Vinny's balls on Twitter at our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Diesel chimed in. Vin has really become a minor celebrity. So people are going to miss him over there. And actually, he does have a unique flair. I really like Joel coming in here, and maybe possibly you guys doing something with fantasy would be really cool. But I miss Vinny too. He has a unique style and a unique energy that makes the podcast very entertaining to listen to.
That he does.
Yeah, he's definitely a podcast superstar. He brings a different flavor that not everybody gets to taste every day. And I think that's the key, though, is that
he really seals the flavor in, is what you're saying.
Yes. So that'll do it for episode 8 of the Motor City Sports Rant. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.